A migrant crisis spiraling out of control.
Hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers are risking everything.
A human wave washing over Europe's southern shores.
Hundreds of thousands of migrants have streamed into Europe, the largest influx there since the end of World War II.
This documentary is about immigration in the UK. I, Stephanie Ospina, will be exploring the different statuses of immigration that exist, experiencing firsthand the accounts of migrants who have fled from war-torn countries and are currently right now making a positive impact to the British society, while still taking you on a journey with me to discover why there is a need for certain organisations to exist and represent the rights of migrants. We're all set now to make a start on this journey. What better place to start than in London? I'm on my way right now to speak to a representative from 2 migrants' rights organisations to find out why there is a need for these organisations to exist in the first place.
My name is Alan Anstead. I'm the coordinator of the UK Race in Europe network, and I also work at Migrants' Rights Network, implementing EU projects for them. My role is coordinator of the UK Race in Europe network. That's a network of 160 different organisations, many of them grassroots local organisations across the whole of the UK, so not just England but also Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And their aims broadly are to promote race equality and also to combat racism, particularly race or religious hatred. Racism is a key thing that I want to fight against, but it's the whole range of human rights. We provide them with materials, we coordinate them, we give them opportunities to put their points of view using their local examples to decision makers in Parliament or government and also at a European level as well. Before I came back to UK, before I worked for UK Race in Europe Network and Migrants' Rights Network, I worked with Roma in Central Europe, taking cases of Roma victimisation, injustices to European Court of Human Rights and to UN treaty bodies. Roma is an ethnic group. There are 10 million Roma across a wide Europe, so including Russia and Ukraine and others. And so been here for many centuries, but always been victimised. Many came to the UK, looked for more opportunity, escaped discrimination. Many of them, and still the case in Czech Republic and Slovakia, because they're Roma kids. They have to go to a special needs school, not because they have special needs in education, but because they're Roma. And that still exists. Even though there was a European Court of Human Rights case that found against the Czech government in that case and told them that they had to change the system, they haven't, they've ignored it. So they come to UK so the kids can have an education. And the really interesting and great thing is that the kids are doing well at schools in the UK because they're in mainstream education, they're not in special needs. Okay, they might need a little bit of extra tuition, which many migrants would, perhaps on language or other things they can catch up with the curriculum, but that done, they're doing really well. The overall situation with the present government that will talk openly about creating a hostile environment for migrants. The government's been pursuing this hostile environment for migrants for the last few years. It's actually the terminology used by Theresa May. In a speech she said she wants to create a hostile environment for, she used the word illegal migrants, but it appears that this is the policy against all migrants. And therefore we've been using that terminology back because she's the one that started that, mentioned it in a speech. She wanted to create a hostile environment for illegal migrants. And that hostile environment takes different forms. It means it's much more difficult for someone to go about their normal work or life in a society, much more difficult for someone to visit a doctor, much more difficult for someone to rent accommodation, flat or house or whatever. Much more difficult perhaps for someone to apply for the school of their choice for their children. All different areas.
Having heard Alan's perspective on immigration, human rights and migrant rights, it's clear to say Alan feels very strongly about these 3 topics. I'm looking forward to speaking to a Labour councillor of Southampton, a dynamic multicultural city which voted to leave during the EU referendum, which sparks curiosity to know what the situation is like right now for migrants in Southampton.
Okay, I'm Sarah Bogle. I'm a councillor for Bargate Ward in Southampton, which is the inner city ward. I've been a councillor since 2006 and been doing it nearly 11 years, which is quite scary. In terms of my role, we have had quite high levels of immigration in the city. So whichever wave of immigration happens, you see it first in the inner city. So whether it's from African countries, particularly places like Somalia, or whether it's countries like Afghanistan or all the Eastern European countries, that they're all there in the ward I represent, but also in the wider city as well. So, that just means that there's possibly more challenges in terms of school places, more challenges in terms of providing services, but also those people also bring a lot to the economy as well. So there's lots of new businesses have sprouted up, and they're paying taxes and contributing to the economy, and very relied upon in certain key sectors of the economy, particularly areas like care work and everything. So yeah, it has an impact, but it's positive, and it's not all negative. It's positive and negative sometimes. Southampton is actually quite lucky as a city. It's relatively cohesive, as they call it. It's not one group dominates, so it generally people rub along together pretty well, and you don't get that level of mistrust and sort of real divisions and ghettoisation that you get in some larger cities, particularly in the northern part of the country. I would say because it's very mixed up, so you don't get like just say one group from one part of the country just dominating one area. So it's actually in some ways easier for it to be sort of mitigated. And also we've got a tradition of always welcoming new people from many countries for literally hundreds of years. We had the Huguenots, in the 18th century, or whatever. We've had people from literally all over the world come through this port, and it may have accelerated, but it's not necessarily as big a deal here that it would be in other places. I think that reality has set in terms of trying to make the best of and trying to avoid a sort of hard Brexit, if you know what I mean. It's happening. Don't like it, I voted Remain, but I think we've all got to sort of get our heads around why it happened, and also try and engage constructively in what happens next, because there's so much at stake, and there's 40 years of collaboration to unravel, and that isn't going to be an easy task, and I don't think the capacity is there to do it really, but it's going to suck the civil service dry, and it's probably going to cause us as local authorities quite a lot of challenges in terms of not being able to move forward in lots of areas, because Whitehall will be obsessed with Brexit. So maybe it's a chance for us to maybe demand a bit more power locally, so we can do what we want to do in terms of serving our communities and making their lives better, which is really what we're there for.
Taking into consideration what both Alan and Sarah have said, I am excited to speak to Bara, a Syrian migrant from Aleppo who can no longer return to his country due to the war. He is an example of someone who actively engages within his environment and in turn has been able to build bridges within other communities by raising awareness about immigration.
I'm Bara from Syria, and I come from Aleppo, my hometown. I came to the UK in 2014 to do my master's at Exeter University, and I graduated, and now I'm running a charity. Graduated from my course and I couldn't go back, so I had to seek asylum.
You couldn't go back to
Syria?
To Syria.
Yeah, I was planning to go back initially, and then I couldn't, so I had to seek asylum because of the political situation there. So it got worse and worse and more difficult, and I had to seek asylum. And then I was granted asylum, became a refugee.
So before you came to the UK, had you been before to England before you completely migrated?
Yeah, I came twice to the UK before, 2006 and 2010, which was the reason why I chose the UK to come and do my master's in it. Then I came to visit my sister, and I did an English language course in 2006. So in Aleppo, before the crisis, I had normal life. I was studying computer engineering in my undergraduates, and then I graduated. The crisis started in my country, and I was volunteering with refugees. I was managing a charity kitchen that produces food for internally displaced people. We started with 7,000 meals a day and ended up doing 30,000 meals a day. And after that, I thought I had to develop my skills and work on my future, so I applied for masters in the UK. My visa was rejected initially because they said, "We don't believe you're a student, we think you're coming to seek asylum." And then I appealed, and then I got the visa, and here I am.
And your family right now is where?
So my family now is separated all over the place. Some in Turkey, some in Aleppo, some in Europe, some in America, Some have been outside or abroad before the crisis, and some traveled just after the crisis. After graduation, I registered a charity called From Syria with Love, a charity that works directly with the people in need. So mainly doing two activities in the UK, raising funds and, more importantly, awareness. So we do a talk, a presentation about the Syrian refugee crisis, which I've spoken to 4,500 people. And I do art exhibition as well. Here we'll see an art exhibition, one of the art exhibitions that I've planned in Bristol. We had around like 120 people a day or 100 people a day coming to view the drawings. These drawings are done by children living in the refugee camps in Lebanon. They try to express their trauma and their tragedy through the artwork. And we brought them, framed them, and started selling them. So people can buy these pictures actually, and we take the money, send it back to where we help the people. We also have a book called From Syria with Love. It features voices of the children from the camp, their lives, what their thoughts are, what was their past like, and their present and their future. And we take money raised from these activities to help people in most need where there's lack of NGOs and charities. We raised around £34,000 since we started till now, and we're using different ways to get the money to the people in need. There's always hope, but it depends on the time limits or time scale, and it depends on the amount of people working on it. It depends on several factors really.
After hearing Barra's account about what it's like to be a refugee in the UK, what it's like to be a victim of a war-torn country, and how through his organisation he's been able to find hope again. But it's important to note that not all migrants choose to leave their countries. In fact, some even refuse to. An example of this is Jana Jihad. She is Palestine's youngest journalist. At 10 years old, she's been awarded for her journalistic findings, which document the untold stories she lives day by day in the West Bank. Jana will tell us about what it's like for her to live in a country that is still at war.
My name is Jana Jihad Tamimi and I am 10 years old. I live in a village named Nabi Saleh in a city named Ramallah in Palestine. Everything happened in Palestine from the occupation. They kill children, kill adults, make always checkpoints after checkpoints after checkpoints while we are going to school. Children or people or mothers and fathers, parents are going to their work. They bring a lot of big dogs, a lot of people, a lot of soldiers having their gun, putting them on the head of the children. So I started saying, it's our land, it's our right to go in and pray. We have to go and pray. Then the soldier, I made my report, and the soldier said, if you didn't shut up, I will arrest your mother. I was very scared that moment. I was crying, very like, what is happening around me, confused, puzzled. Like what will happen. I'm speaking about the things that I'm seeing every day, that every child in Palestine see it every day.
If you had the opportunity to leave Palestine, to be in a safer country, would you choose it?
I won't choose it. I will not choose it because it's our land. It's my soul that I lived in. I resist for. My heart is in this land. So if I went to America, if I went to any place in the whole world, the safest place in the whole world, I will be very sad because I'm not in my holy land, in my land that I love, because Palestine is my place that I lived in. Every moment in my life, I think of it. I'm making a lot of things for it and to make it free. And I would never go to any place.
Who inspired you to want to become a journalist?
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey?
Yeah, because she challenged the poor and even the thing that it was, they hated black people in America in those times. So she challenged that thing and become a very big thing as she wanted. And that's, I want to become a big thing as I want to say to the whole world, if you follow your dreams, you will go to it and you'll receive it. And she become a journalist, very famous journalist.
Do you think things can change in Palestine, Jana?
I am believing that things will change because I have in my heart, like, that I'm saying that Palestine will be free because we want Palestine to be free. We can do everything. We lose blood for Palestine. We lose souls. We lose children. We lose women. We lose parents, and that will not go for nothing.
At just 10 years old, Jana Jihad is already displaying such compassion towards humanity. But she isn't the only one to do this. Aid workers do this all the time. Marissa is an aid worker from Dover, and for the last year she's been going to the refugee camp in Calais that was once known as the jungle. There she met an unaccompanied minor from Sudan. His name is Tito. Both Tito and Marissa will be sharing their accounts as to what it's been like for the two of them to go through this migrant crisis.
Okay, my name's Marissa Rickard, and I'm a mum, firstly and mostly, but I do humanitarian aid work, working in the camps, what was the jungle and now the Dunkirk refugee camp. My family, knowing the kind of nature that I have, thought we can't stop her. And we take more people out from Kent and beyond, and I think the more people would come back and spread the information, that helped relieve any concerns that people had. The more time that we went and came back, and they knew we were safe, we survived, and had good experiences. And that's not to say that there wasn't horrible things happening. But for us, the priority was delivering humanitarian aid. When we were in the jungle, we were building a community shelter, and we were right in the middle of the Sudanese area within the jungle, and there was one 17-year-old, and he said something to me that to this day, well, I'll never forget. And as an aid worker, you want to try and provide for the needs, and I asked him if there was anything that he was in need of that I could bring back for him, and he said, I don't need anything, please don't forget me. The last time I saw him was about 4 months ago. 4 months ago, yeah.
It started since 2014. I left when I was...
You left where?
I left Sudan when I was 14 years old, and I went to Egypt, and I stayed in Egypt 2 years. I work in garage, washing car. I slept in the same garage for 1 year and a half, and then I worked in factory in Egypt. So 2 years in Egypt, and then I decided to cross the ocean to Italy, and yeah, I crossed to Italy. I stay in the ocean 10 days. It's really hard to come in from the south to the north. So I crossed Italy, and then I arrived to France. From Italy and from France, I stayed in Calais for 3 months, and then I went to Belgium. I stayed 1 month in Belgium and 10 days in Germany. And then after Germany, I came back to Calais. And from Calais, I came in here. My life is totally changed for the better. And now I start college. I will do the high level. They call it GCC, I think. Yeah, I will do it because I need to get ready to university. I need to get to university. Maybe someday I will be a doctor. My dad told me before he died, if you want help, the people they need help, you can be a doctor, because in our country we need a lot of doctors, because we have a lot of war over there and people die because they don't have someone to care of them. So I need to be like my dad, as my dad told me. The hard thing is you stay away from your mom for 3 days, 3 years, sorry, 3 years, and you never, 3 years never see your mom, so it's really hard. And I had a lot of things stop me to come here, but I fight with that.
Having now heard the accounts of Bara, Jana and Tito, and words from Alan, Sarah and Marissa, this documentary would have now explored the different statuses of immigration, what it's like for a migrant to leave their war-torn country, and for some, how leaving isn't even an option. But this documentary was about sparking a conversation about the positive impact migrants have in our society. Thank you so much for watching.
Finally, brethren, after a while, the battle will be over. For that day when we shall lay down our burden